He was supposed to spy on her. Instead, he did something unthinkable. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who hires a private investigator. That always sounded like something out of a bad movie, something paranoid husbands with no self-respect would do. I wasn't that guy. Or at least, I didn't think I was. Until I started noticing things I couldn't ignore anymore. It began with little things. My wife, Rachel, started staying out later. At first it was book club, then it was wine nights. Then it became just dinner with the girls. Every week there was something new, and when she got home, she wouldn't talk much. She'd go straight to the shower, spend extra time getting ready for bed, then lie down next to me like a stranger. I asked her once, just once, if everything was okay. She smiled. That kind of fake smile people give when they're hiding something? Of course, she said. Why wouldn't it be? I wanted to believe her. God, I did. We'd been married for 7 years. I still remembered the day I proposed, how she cried, how I thought I was the luckiest man alive. I never imagined that years later I'd be lying awake at 2 a.m., wondering if the woman next to me was in love with someone else. It wasn't just the nights out. She started being protective of her phone. She used to leave it on the kitchen counter all the time. Now it was glued to her hand, face down, always on silent. One time, I walked into the room and she quickly locked the screen and stuffed it into her pocket like a teenager, and when I asked her about it, "You're being dramatic," she said, brushing me off like I was a child. That was the moment I knew something was wrong. I tried talking myself down. I even Googled how to stop being paranoid in a relationship, but the knot in my stomach didn't go away. And then one day, at lunch, my coworker Dan casually mentioned a private investigator he had used during his divorce. "Guys, discreet," he said, "gets results. Just in case you ever need someone like that." I took the number and shoved it into my wallet, telling myself I'd never use it. But that night, when Rachel came home wearing lipstick I hadn't seen in months, smelling like someone else's cologne, I pulled out that card. His name was Mark Hensley. He sounded calm on the phone, professional, polite, no questions asked. "I just need a few details," he said. "Routine stuff. Name, address, car make, typical schedule." I gave him everything. I felt disgusting, but I also felt strangely relieved. Like the burden wasn't all mine anymore. He promised to keep me updated, but to give him at least a few days if something's happening, he said, "I'll find it." I spent those days in a strange fog, watching Rachel move around the house like nothing was wrong. Like she wasn't being followed. It made my skin crawl. And then, exactly 7 days later, I got the message. A text from Mark. "We need to talk. It's not what you think." That was it. 7 words that hit me like a punch in the chest. I stared at the screen, rereading it again and again. Not what you think. What the hell did that mean? Was she cheating, just not with who I thought? Or was he telling me something worse? I called him immediately. No answer. I texted, "Call me now. What's going on?" Nothing. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Rachel, trying to figure out what kind of bomb was about to go off in my life. She turned over at one point and gently placed her hand on my chest. I flinched. She pulled away, and that's when I realized something terrifying. I didn't know who I was anymore, and I had no idea who she was either. I finally heard back from Mark the next morning. He didn't call, didn't text, but there was something underneath it. Hesitation, maybe even guilt. "Hey, it's Mark. I'm sorry for the delay. I've got some updates, but it's better if we talk in person. Can you meet today?" No answer. By noon, I was already sitting at the cafe, scanning the street for his face. My mind raced through every possibility. Was she having an affair with someone I knew? Did she hire him to follow me? Was he working for her? When Mark finally showed up, I barely recognized him. He looked different from the clean-cut photo on his website, messy or tired. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie undone. Me. I didn't have much of a choice, I muttered. He nodded like he understood. Instead, he took a sip of water and glanced around. "I've done this job a long time. I've seen the worst sides of people. And your wife, Rachel, she's not what I expected." "No, not in the way you think. What the hell does that mean?" Mark leaned in. "Your wife isn't having an affair, and you know what she did?" I waited. "She sat in a parked car outside a hospital for hours. Then she drove home." I blinked. That's it. Just sat there, looking at the building. "Which hospital? St. Mercy?" I frowned. "Rachel doesn't know anyone there." "Are you sure?" Inside were photographs, grainy shots taken at night. My wife's car, her silhouette behind the wheel, her face lit by the faint glow of her phone. One image caught her looking down at something in her lap. A photo, maybe, or a letter. I ran her plates just to confirm. That's definitely her, and that's where she went. No detours, no other cars, no signs of meeting anyone. I flipped through the pictures again, trying to make sense of it. So, Mark exhaled. Look, man, I know this isn't what you expected. A nurse. Off the record. Inside, I needed to know what she was looking at. And that's when I found out. He was listed as next of kin, Rachel Avery. Wait, what does that mean? I don't know, Mark said. But it gets worse. He pulled out one last photo. Ethan Blake. Arm around her waist, eyes locked on each other like nobody else existed. I stared at the photo for a long time. I thought she told me everything, I whispered. Mark leaned back. I think your wife had a life before you. A whole life she never told you about. And now, I couldn't stop staring at the photo. Rachel and Ethan, his arm was around her waist, and the way they looked at each other. It wasn't some distant friend or forgotten college acquaintance. It was intimate, familiar. The photo was dated 5 years ago. That would have been 2 years before we got married. Not once. I drove home in a daze, the file folder on the passenger seat like a loaded gun. When I pulled into the driveway, Rachel's car wasn't there. She was at a yoga class, probably. Or maybe sitting in that hospital parking lot again. Mourning a man I'd never even heard of. Inside the house, everything looked normal. Too normal. A candle flickered in the kitchen, but all I could think about was Ethan Blake. I opened my laptop and started digging. First, social media. His Facebook profile hadn't been updated in years, not since just before he died. His last post was a blurry photo of the beach. The caption read, "Sometimes you know you're running out of time, even if no one else does." The comments were filled with condolences. "You were one of the good ones. Still can't believe you're gone. Rest easy, Ethan." But none from Rachel. I checked her old posts, searched for his name. Nothing. She had erased him, scrubbed every trace of him from her public life. It was like he never existed. I looked up the obituary next. Simple, unremarkable Ethan Blake, 34, passed away at St. Mercy Hospital after a fatal car accident. He is survived by no immediate family except Rachel Avery had been listed as next of kin, and there was one more line. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to the Red Pines Institute. The name meant nothing to me, but I clicked the link, found tax records, property listings, board members. That's when I saw it. Rachel's name listed as a donor twice too. Years ago, the same month Ethan died. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. Why would she donate to a mental health institute after a man died in a car crash? What was the connection, and why the hell had she never told me? I scrolled through Red Pine's site again and clicked a buried link titled "In Memory." It took me to a digital memorial wall. Photos, names, messages from loved ones, and there he was, Ethan Blake. Except this version told a very different story. Ethan Blake, remembered by those who knew his fight. Diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder at age 26, Ethan spent his final years in and out of care. He was a gifted writer, a loyal friend, or lack thereof. I clicked on the photo next to his name. It was the same man from Rachel's photo. A little older, a little thinner. His eyes were tired. "I never stopped loving you. Even when you forgot who I was," my stomach dropped. "Even when you forgot who I was." That wasn't something you said to a fling or a friend. That was something deeper. Someone she failed. I closed the laptop just as I heard the front door open. Her keys hit the table. She kicked off her shoes, walked in, humming softly. She saw me sitting in the kitchen and smiled. "Hey, you're home early?" I stared at her, heart racing, and I said it without thinking. "Who is Ethan Blake?" Her face changed in an instant. The smile vanished. Her body went stiff, and then for the briefest moment, her eyes filled. With panic, she didn't answer. She just turned and walked out of the room. She didn't slam the door. She didn't yell. She just walked down the hallway and closed the bedroom door behind her. Quiet, controlled. I sat frozen for a full minute, unsure if I should follow or give her space. But deep down, I already knew there would be no peace until I heard the truth. When I opened the bedroom door, she was sitting at the edge of the bed, staring down at her hands like she didn't recognize them. "I didn't want this to happen," she said before I even spoke. "Tried to keep that part of my life buried." "Rachel," I said gently, "just talk to me, please." She looked up. "I loved him," she whispered, "before you. Long before his name was Ethan Blake. We met in college. He was brilliant, funny, a little reckless, but he had this sadness in him. Like he was always one thought away from disappearing." I sat down across from her, she continued. "We moved in together after graduation. We talked about marriage, kids, all of it. But then things started changing. He'd disappear for days. Come back saying people were watching him. He thought I was spying on him, recording him." Her voice cracked. "I begged him to see someone. He refused. Said I was part of the conspiracy." She took a deep breath. "He got diagnosed eventually. Schizoaffective disorder. It was hell for him. For me, I stayed as long as I could. But one night he attacked me, said I was a clone, that the real me had been replaced. My stomach twisted, I ran, moved cities, changed my number. I didn't even tell my parents I was scared. He tried to find me once, sent letters, but then it all stopped. Years passed, and I met you. I swallowed hard. So why start going back to the hospital? Why now? She looked at me and her eyes shimmered, because 2 months ago I got a call from a lawyer. They said Ethan had listed me as his emergency contact years ago before I left. Apparently the hospital couldn't reach anyone else. They told me he died in an accident, but he was already on a watch list. He'd escaped a care facility, walked right into traffic. She covered her face with her hands. He died alone, and I left him. I reached out and touched her hand. It trembled beneath my fingers. You didn't kill him, Rachel. I abandoned him. You survived. Silence. I've been going to the hospital, she said, because I didn't know where else to grieve. I didn't want to tell you because ... I was ashamed. And I didn't want you to see that version of me, the one that failed him. I believed her. I really did. But something still felt off. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I got back on my laptop. I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was just instinct. I opened Ethan's memorial page again, looking at the message. She left. I never stopped loving you. Even when you forgot who I was. and that's when I saw it. The timestamp. That message wasn't posted 2 months ago. After the lawyer's call, it was posted last year. A full 10 months before he died. I couldn't sleep. Not after seeing that timestamp. 10 months before he died. She said she only found out 2 months ago after the lawyer's call, but the memorial message was dated a full year before now. She'd been lying, and not just lying, planning. That message wasn't something you leave for someone you're trying to forget. It was tender, raw, personal. It meant there was contact, communication, maybe even reconciliation. Was it possible she had been seeing him again? I waited until morning, pretending everything was fine, kissed her cheek, made coffee, watched her leave for her yoga class. Then I went back to the file the private investigator had given me. I hadn't gone through all of it, I was too overwhelmed at the time. But now I opened every document, every receipt, every photograph, and then I found it. A receipt, a hotel bill. 1 year ago, same month as the memorial post. Name on the reservation, E. Blake. But the additional guest field had one entry, Rachel Avery. My vision blurred. I read it again and again. No mistake. Same spelling, same last name. She had checked into a hotel with him. That wasn't something you do for closure. That wasn't mourning. That was intimacy. But why? Why go back to a man who once tried to hurt her, who she claimed was delusional and dangerous? Unless... I hesitated, unless her version of the past wasn't the full story either. I started making a timeline. Her marriage to me, the donation to the institute, Ethan's supposed death, the memorial message, the hotel. None of it added up. Then I noticed another document, a background report on Ethan's hospitalizations. There was a list of check-ins and discharges. Most of them seemed standard, but one entry stood out. March 14th, he was discharged under the care of a private sponsor. No name listed, but I knew that date because March 14th is the exact day. Rachel and I got engaged. My hands went cold. Why would Ethan be discharged to a sponsor on the same day I proposed to Rachel? And why was there no name? I searched the PI's flash drive and found scanned security footage from outside the facility's parking lot that day. The image was grainy, but one of the cars was ours, Rachel's car. She had picked him up. I stared at the screen, not breathing. She lied about when she last saw him. She lied about the memorial. She lied about everything. And worst of all, she brought him back into our lives the same day she agreed to marry me. It wasn't just betrayal, it was calculated that night. I confronted her. She walked through the door holding groceries like nothing had happened. Hey babe, they were out of almond milk. But stop, I said, my voice hoarse. Sit down. She paused, looked at me. What's going on? I showed her the hotel bill, the timestamp, the car footage. Her face went white. I can explain, she whispered. You've been saying that for days? She sat down slowly, hands in her lap. I didn't want to hurt you, she said. I was just trying to do the right thing. What was the right thing, Rachel? Getting back together with your ex while we were planning a wedding? She looked up, tears in her eyes. No, it wasn't like that. Then, what was it? Silence. And then, barely audible, he said someone was after him. That he had information, something people would kill for, and I believed him. What are you talking about? She leaned forward and said one sentence that made my blood run cold. Ethan didn't die in an accident. He was murdered. Her words echoed in the silence between us. Ethan didn't die in an accident. He was murdered. My heart slammed against my ribs like it wanted to escape. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Rachel swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. Because I was scared. Scared for us, ... And for him. I leaned in, desperate for answers. She took a shaky breath. Ethan got mixed up in something. ... dangerous. He said he had proof documents, recordings that could ruin powerful people. People who didn't want him alive. I stared, struggling to process it all. Why didn't you go to the police? She shook her head. They were the problem that night. I couldn't sleep. I felt trapped in a web of lies and half-truths. I needed proof. The next morning, I started going through every message Rachel had on her phone. I found encrypted emails between her and a mysterious contact named M. The messages hinted at secret meetings and warnings. Then, I found a hidden folder labeled for protection. Inside were photos, videos, and documents, proof of Ethan's claims, evidence of bribery, cover-ups, and threats. But the last file made my blood run cold. It was a video, Ethan, shaky and fearful, speaking directly into the camera. "They're coming for me," he whispered. "If anything happens to me, trust Rachel." The video ended with a date, 3 weeks before his accident. My mind raced. If Ethan was murdered, who was behind it? And why did Rachel keep this secret? Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or you'll end up like him." Fear wrapped around me like ice. That's when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to see a man in a dark coat, his eyes cold as winter. "I'm here to help," he said. But as he stepped inside, I realized I didn't know if I could trust anyone anymore. The man in the dark coat stood in my living room, his presence heavy and silent. "I'm Agent Collins," he said quietly. "I've been watching Ethan's case for months. I studied him. Was he friend or foe?" Rachel's eyes searched mine. Pleading, "I can help," Collins continued, "but you need to know the full truth." He pulled out a folder, thick with documents. Ethan was involved in exposing a major corruption ring. Politicians, CEOs, even law enforcement. The accident was staged to look like a suicide. My stomach turned. "But Rachel, ... I started." "She knew more than she told you," Collins interrupted. "She was forced to cooperate, protect herself, protect you." Ethan trusted her, but the danger was real. Rachel nodded slowly, tears streaming. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. "I was trapped." Collins handed me a flash drive. "This contains everything Ethan gathered. If you expose it, you'll put yourself in danger too." I looked at Rachel. "Why didn't you leave? Why stay with him if it was so dangerous?" She shook her head. "Because I believed he could be saved, and because ... I loved him." Then Collins said something that froze me. "There's one last thing. Ethan isn't dead." My breath caught. "What? He's alive, but hiding? Deep undercover, thanks to people like Rachel helping him vanish." Rachel took my hand. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but I had to keep you safe." I sat down, overwhelmed. Betrayal, love, danger, all tangled in a web more twisted than I ever imagined. And now, everything I thought I knew was shattered as I stared at Rachel. I realized, sometimes the truth isn't what it seems. Sometimes love means hiding in the shadows, and sometimes the biggest betrayal is the hardest secret of all.